Picture this. You've finally made it. The corner office, the recognition, the numbers in your bank account that once seemed impossible. You should feel victorious, shouldn't you? Instead, you find yourself staring at your reflection in the bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., wondering who this hollow-eyed stranger is looking back at you. The success you fought so hard for sits like a stone in your chest, heavy with the weight of everything you sacrificed to get here. Your relationships, your health, your connection to what once made you feel alive. This moment of reckoning isn't failure, it's awakening. The success that destroys us isn't inherently evil. It's simply misaligned a magnificent cathedral built on the wrong foundation. We chase external validation with the fervor of medieval pilgrims, believing that the next achievement, the next milestone, the next level of recognition will finally fill the aching void within us. But here's the paradox that modern psychology and ancient wisdom both recognize. The very success we think we need often becomes the prison that keeps us from who we're meant to become. Carl Jung understood this profound contradiction when he wrote about the successful patients who came to him in the second half of life. Accomplished individuals who had achieved everything society told them to want, yet found themselves spiritually bankrupt. He called this the crisis of meaning, the moment when the ego's carefully constructed tower begins to crumble, not from external forces, but from its own fundamental instability. Think of the caterpillar entering its chrysalis. From the outside, it appears to be engaging in an act of self-destruction. It literally dissolves itself, breaking down its familiar form into an undifferentiated soup of potential. If we could speak to a caterpillar on the verge of this transformation, it would likely resist clinging to its known identity, terrified of the dissolution that awaits. This is where we find ourselves when success begins to feel like a cage. We've become so identified with our achievements, our roles, our external markers of worth, that the thought of letting them go feels like death itself. In a very real sense, it's the death of the false self, the persona we've constructed to meet the world's expectations. But here's what the caterpillar doesn't know, what we often forget in our own transformations. Dissolution is not destruction. It's sacred decomposition, the necessary breaking down that allows for something infinitely more magnificent to emerge. The butterfly doesn't achieve flight by trying harder to be a better caterpillar. It surrenders completely to become something entirely new. Jung's concept of the shadow becomes particularly relevant here. The shadow isn't just our negative traits, it's everything we've had to reject, suppress, or abandon in pursuit of what we thought success looked like. Perhaps you buried your creative spirit to climb the corporate ladder. Maybe you silenced your intuitive wisdom to fit into analytical frameworks. Or you abandoned your need for deep connection in favor of networking and strategic relationships. These rejected parts of ourselves don't disappear. They accumulate in the unconscious. It's creating what Jung called a shadow debt, a psychological inflation that eventually demands payment. The successful executive who finds themselves inexplicably drawn to destructive behaviors, the acclaimed artist who sabotages their own work, the spiritual teacher caught in scandals. These aren't moral failures, but shadow eruptions, the psyche's desperate attempt to restore balance. The path forward isn't to demonize success or retreat into spiritual, bypassing that seductive notion that we can transcend our earthly concerns through meditation and positive thinking alone. True transformation requires something far more courageous. The integration of our shadow, the reclaiming of those abandoned parts of ourselves that hold the keys to authentic power. In the tarot, the hermit carries a lantern not to light the way for others, but to illuminate the path inward. This archetypal figure represents the necessary withdrawal from external validation systems to discover what Jung called our undisturbed self, the person we are when no one is watching, when no metrics are being measured, when no applause echoes in the distance. This inner journey isn't comfortable. It requires us to sit with the uncomfortable truth that much of what we've called success has been performance rather than authentic expression. It asks us to examine our motivations. With ruthless honesty, are we creating from inspiration or desperation? Are we serving from love or from the need to be needed? Are we achieving from a place of wholeness or trying to fill an internal void through external means? The hermit's lantern reveals not just our shadows but also our gold. Those aspects of ourselves that we've forgotten or deemed impractical. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's a superpower that's been shamed into hiding. Your unconventional ideas aren't liabilities. They're the source of genuine innovation. Your need for solitude and reflection isn't antisocial behavior. It's essential maintenance for your soul. Here we encounter one of the most profound paradoxes of human existence. We must simultaneously strive and surrender, achieve and release, engage fully with the world while remaining unattached to outcomes. This isn't a philosophical riddle, it's a lived reality that requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. The destructive success pattern occurs when we collapse this tension, when we become so identified with outcomes that we lose touch with the process, so focused on the destination that we forget to notice whether we're still on our authentic path. We begin to mistake busyness for purpose, accumulation for abundance, recognition for self-worth. True success, the kind that nourishes rather than depletes, emerges from this sacred tension. It's the entrepreneur who builds their business from genuine passion rather than ego gratification. It's the artist who creates not for fame, but for the sheer joy of bringing beauty into the world. It's the leader who serves not from a need to control, but from an overflow of authentic care. So how do we navigate this transformation? How do we dismantle the destructive patterns without losing our drive, our ambition, our ability to create meaningful change in the world? The answer lies not in doing more, but in being more and more present, more aware, more connected to the subtle guidance of our deeper wisdom. This requires what spiritual traditions call witnessing consciousness, the ability to observe our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without immediately identifying with them. When you feel the familiar drive to achieve, pause and ask, what is the quality of this motivation? Does it arise from inspiration and joy, or from fear and inadequacy? When you experience success, notice, does this expand your sense of connection to life, or does it create separation and inflation? This isn't about judging these experiences as good or bad, but about developing the capacity to choose consciously rather than being driven unconsciously by patterns that no longer serve us. Instead of asking, how can I be more successful? Try asking, how can I be more myself? Instead of what do I need to achieve, ask what am I being called to express? Instead of how do I get what I want, inquire what wants to emerge through me. These questions shift us from the ego's agenda to the soul's intelligence. They invite us to consider that perhaps we're not here to force our will upon the world, but to discover what the world is asking of us, what unique gift we're here to offer, what particular note we're meant to contribute to the grand symphony of existence. This process of dismantling and rebuilding isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing dance of death and rebirth. It's contraction and expansion, losing ourselves and finding ourselves again at deeper levels. Each time we outgrow a limited version of success, we're invited into this sacred dissolution. It's wholly undoing that clears space for something truer to emerge. The butterfly doesn't emerge from the chrysalis. It's carrying the caterpillar's belongings. It's equipped with entirely new capacities, wings instead of legs. The ability to see ultraviolet colors, the instinct to migrate thousands of miles. Similarly, when we surrender our attachment to destructive success patterns, we don't lose our power. We discover powers we never knew we had. We find that we can achieve without attachment, create without desperation, lead without domination. We discover that our greatest contributions come not from our struggles, but from our joy. Not from our wounds, but from our wholeness. Not from proving ourselves, but from expressing ourselves. What you're experiencing, this discomfort with success, as you've known it, this longing for something more meaningful, this sense that you're being called to a different way of being, isn't a crisis, it's an initiation. You're being invited into what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. This initiation requires courage, not the courage to climb higher ladders, but the courage to question whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. It requires faith, not blind faith, but the deeper faith that comes from recognizing the intelligence that orchestrates the seasons, that grows the trees, that beats your heart without your conscious effort. True motivation, the kind that sustains, rather than depletes, rises not from the ego's desperate need to prove itself, but from the soul's natural tendency toward growth, expression, and service. When we align with this deeper current, we find ourselves capable of achievements that seemed impossible when we were trying to force outcomes through willpower alone. The success that once threatened to destroy you becomes the compost for your transformation. Every moment of emptiness you've experienced in the midst of achievement, every hollow victory, every late-night questioning of your path, these aren't signs of failure, but seeds of wisdom. Invitations to discover what success looks like when it emerges from authenticity rather than performance. You don't have to choose between ambition and spirituality, between achievement and peace, between making a difference and maintaining your sanity. You're being called to a third way, the way of conscious success, of aligned action, of serving from overflow rather than striving from emptiness. This conversation doesn't end here. It continues in the quiet moments when you pause to ask what your soul is whispering. It continues in the courage to say no to opportunities that don't align with your deeper purpose. It continues in your willingness to share your own struggles and discoveries with others who are walking this path of conscious transformation. The world needs your gifts, not the diminished, performing version of yourself, but the full, authentic, integrated expression of who you came here to be. Your transformation isn't just personal, it's part of a larger healing that our world desperately needs. The chrysalis isn't a prison, it's a sacred space of becoming, and you, dear soul, are right on time.